Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerdarchist Ted, and tonight I am joined by this wonderful person.
Nerder Doug.
So how are you doing this evening?
Excellent. As always, Monday is off to a great start for me and Nerdarchy.
That is great to hear.
It seems like a long time since I've been on a live chat, even though it was just the regular rotation. We didn't miss one.
It is weird when you have that that bye week because we do try to give everybody an occasional night off to worry about this, that, and the other thing. But I debated. We're looking at tonight's topic of like, oh, should I talk with a scratch in my voice to say I've got a frog in my throat? But I decided to pass it off and do my typical, jovial, high energy,
Sure.
thing. But
Actually, yeah, you guys did an opening bit. I don't. Who knows what video it was for now? It's just like 4,000 of them or something now. But yeah, I remember when he coughed up a frog. That was pretty funny. But yeah, I was surprised. First of all, yeah, when the topic was suggested, I was right. I was on board for sure because it just sounds fun. And since then, I just thinking about it and looking into it, it's like, not only have I, had a lot of frog related experiences in D&D, but like we've come up with a lot of fun stuff, frog related stuff too.
well,
Through Nerdarchy as well. So it's been pretty fun. I'm looking
to be
forward to
fair
this.
for the home audience, my daughter is currently obsessed with frogs. No lie, she's 8 years old. She's been playing D&D for about 2 years, and through doing the virtual learning today, she comes to me upset, like you've got this grief-stricken face that I've seen before, typically when a pet has died. And she's got a lot of animals in her room, three different aquatic tanks, two different mouse cages. It's the Gabrielle Zoo. It's what it is. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting ready for the breakdown. It's like, we got a writing assignment that we have to tell a story about animals, and there's a certain list of animals, and frog's not one of them. And I'm like, that's okay. And it is like a 5-minute breakdown in tears. And I'm like, you like other animals. Is there anything else on the list that you can pick? And it just tears just dripping down her.
Really, she's really into the frogs, huh?
Oh man. Well, so she's got two active D&D characters. She's got Froggy and Froggo. One is a modified.
Thank God I did not take a sip of my drink before you said.
One is a modified grung. I basically I did not want to give the restriction of having to deal with the soaking in water, or the hydration element.
Oh right, yeah, the water dependency.
Yeah. And then the other one is a dragonborn that was told, it's basically a crossover from a character in the other game, that it's like, oh, I ran into that character who just constantly calls people the wrong race. So dragonborn.
Oh yeah.
So she's a dragonborn who's been told that she's a frog. So she's just Froggo.
That's awesome. Yeah, so one of the things that I had come across when looking about frog and D&D things was something you created with your daughter, which I thought was really cool for Father's Day, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
The Pollywug playable race, which is over on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. And that must have been really cool to just experience for you, because I was thinking we're all kids and we talk about man, I never thought I'd have my name in a book, and now you do, and then you're creating something with your daughter too. That's got to be a nice extra little
loop. My daughter is far more outdoorsy than my son. I love him very much, and he, we've got a lot of crossovers, but my daughter and I go for bike rides and walks pretty often. And for a little bit of the summer, we had started working on a project together. Haven't really done a lot with it in the last month or two, but since there is this whole process, and we'll get back to frogs in a moment, folks.
Sure.
But the concept of like, chimeric creatures and
Mm.
mixing things together, we've got owl bears and the like throughout D&D. So I'm like, what else can we mix together? So I found a website that isn't D&D related in the slightest, but it'll give you, different real world animals. And it's like, okay, you hit the button. Oh, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number you want to look at. And I'm like, all right, how can I combine these together? Can I combine these together? So you're like, okay, can you make a flamingo seal? Is that something that actually works? Whatever. Uh,
Mm.
so we've taken kind of like the best of those and just tried to say, all right, what is this going to look like? Um, but like, the Avatar, The Last Airbender is like all of their natural critters are basically that kind of thing. So like it inspired me to go even further down that rabbit hole. Um, and I've been asked a couple of
Was
times.
it a rabbit mixed with something whole?
The rabbit mole.
Ah, there you go.
The rabbit mole hole.
Nice.
um, but like, so like that is something that I've got kind of in the works of like, okay, they're just going to be, natural creatures that happen to be evolved or, mutated versions
Mhm.
of, two different animals. So,
They're
um,
chimeric.
and to pull in the chat, Joe's asking about the frog dragon because, Joe always asks about dragons. So I actually have a hand-drawn picture of a frogin, a frog dragon that my daughter drew that at some point in time I've been told I have to stat. So
That would be pretty cool. I already was starting to think like, in just straight up dragon terms, like, well, what would their breath weapon be? And it's like, it's a dragon's fantastical creature. I mean, what if instead of breathing something out, it has like, 6 tongues that are just like in a cone and just like, like
so it
that
could it could totally
he's
do the bludgeoning damage via that. You could
and then you stick
absolutely
to it.
oh god, that would be horrific.
Yeah.
You could totally have it, cough up, bile swamp water
Mm.
that could cause a sickness. You
Oh, I
can.
like that. Yeah, I like having like conditions and unusual things like that on
So
monsters.
I mean, having a conic breath weapon that is just doing bludgeoning damage in and itself is interesting. And dragons, some of them actually have the option of
Hmm.
multiple breath weapons. So I would not be opposed to having both of
Oh
those.
yeah, I could totally
Uh,
see it, especially since like they're not both like exhaling something. You know what I mean?
right.
You know,
So that
yeah,
that
hopping
was.
around. Maybe it doesn't even have a fly speed. It's got like a tremendous jump speed or jump distance
I
and
mean, I
stuff.
mean, if you make it, sizable like dragons, it would
Yeah.
definitely be,
Ooh, frog and wormling would be cool to have as like a pet.
yeah. I mean, I don't know whether, you'd want to have the same size scale as, a typical dragon.
Yeah, go for it. Go
And
all the way, man.
you can mirror the intelligence factor off of the white. I think that would be most appropriate. So like the wormlings would honestly be very close to, beast, but a
Oh,
little bit
right, right,
better.
right.
So I definitely directions that
Hmm.
you could wind up taking. So it is something that will appear somewhere, whether it be on the website or on a in a product, but
You
the
know,
fun will exist.
even long before I was on board, there was a precedent for nerdarchy and frogs with Croak Hollow, and I am more than proud to continue carrying on that tradition with frog related stuff because it's just fun, honestly. But
Well,
it's kind of cool too, right? Like, we've made enough items and stuff too. Where I was like, man, if you had all that stuff, you'd be like the frog champion. Like that'd be a pretty cool, kind of arc for a character, right? Like even if you weren't yourself like a grung or anything, it's like you just like, for somebody like your daughter who just loves frogs, it's like, well, what if you're a human that's just like, I just love frogs, they're so cool. And you wind up with the crow cloak and the frog shield
oh
and
yeah.
the wand of frogs and all that stuff. That'd be
But
pretty.
if you really look at D&D and you begin pulling out the manuals, it makes me wonder, like, the original, writers who were,
Mhm.
putting all of this lore, what do they have against frogs?
Yeah, like Slad and
You've
stuff.
got you've got the Slod, you've got Toad Demons, you've got Grung, you've got the Grippoli, you've got Bullywugs, and
Hezru are kind of frog-like, right? Those
by
demons.
raw, every single one of those are evil and like evil, not like we're just passively evil. It's like, dude, man,
Yeah,
what do I got to do to have a good
that's
frog
true.
race?
Yeah, why is that?
I
Yeah,
don't know, man.
what is an ice toad? Are they aligned?
Oh yeah, ice toads are evil too.
Really? I
Oh
figured they had to be aligned. They got their own language.
yeah, they're
Ice toad, of course.
I, I actually started already writing my newsletter for this one. And I can't believe I forgot Ice Toad, but and then
Yeah,
if like
that really stuck out to us when we did that.
and then if
campaign.
like you step outside of core stuff and you go into Kobold,
Oh
like
yeah.
the Bandersnatch and what have you.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jason, I mentioned the Grippoli. Like it's all just nasty. Like they're all
Uh,
guys.
I just did a preview of Toma Beast 2 on the site the other day. They sent me one. Shout out
Oh,
Kobold Press. But one of the things in there is the Toad King, which is like a Fey Lord, animal lord, and it's pretty cool too,
all right.
And
Now
you
I'm
know,
gonna have to get that one.
um, setting aside like what you just pointed out that like all these frogs are evil creatures. It is kind of fun to sort of see that there's that tradition in D&D, and like I feel like we've added our own little niche to it with like Muckwuggle and things like that. I really like that product. I think it's a lot of fun with like this Toad Father Demon Lord, and there's were frogs in there and stuff. And yeah, I think we've contributed a robust amount to the frog lore, but I'm willing to jump further into it.
I mean, so like I've taken and said you don't need to go with the frog folk are all bad.
No.
And I had an adventure that I ran, and I might have talked about this on the channel, and I might have talked about it more than once. So if you're hearing this, if you're hearing this story again, I apologize. But
I
again,
think you're safe either way, because if anybody here is a Nerdarchy audience and they've heard it before, they're cool with it. And if they're new, it's their first time. So let it
but
rip.
my kids game, if you will, as I said, my daughter's playing a grung, and they were in a swamp and they come across a grung village, and again, not evil in this section of the world,
Mhm.
and their lord, their, whether you want to call it god or servitor or whatever thing they pay homage to, was a froghemoth who was sick. And I basically turned the typical D&D encounter on its side of like, okay, I'm teaching the kids that not all combat needs to be about let's sit here and see how much damage that we can do. So rather than trying to defeat the froghemoth, they had to just survive long enough for this ritual to go on. And it was this sorry, didn't mean to cause an earthquake there. Kicking the camera's a bad thing. So like the players and even the adult at the table was like shocked of like, wait a second, we're not supposed to kill it, we have to just occupy it.
So you like that's interesting sort of DM tip there too. I imagine you made that like clear to them,
Yes.
in the
well,
context of the game
well
too,
yeah.
and players also.
So before like I had even set the information, set up the combat encounter. I pulled out the map and
Mhm.
all of the minis and what have you.
Sure.
And I told them, I'm like, all right, look, this is their king, this is their lord, and it's sick. But the priests, the people who are going to do the ritual, they need to be so close to it to enact the magic to try and fix things. And no one was really interested in helping out the ritual. They're like, okay, we'll play interference.
Okay.
And the thing would make attacks because it's a freaking froghemoth. It's got super long tendrils.
Mhm.
So it would be like, all right, I'm gonna attack the players, I'm gonna attack the NPCs. And the NPCs had to make so many successes on their checks to succeed at the ritual.
Right.
And once that got done, it was great. But like out of the 5 players at the table, like 2 of them were unconscious, one of which was in the Froghemoth's tentacles.
Mhm.
uh
So they knew though that like if the ritual is successful, it would be placated and stop attacking.
mhm.
Yeah, see, that's a great kind of encounter too, especially like it sort of like rewards the role playing of learning that stuff. Because
Mhm.
if you have time to prepare, it's like, well, that gives characters interesting choices of like what spells to prepare, for instance. Like
Mhm.
maybe you want to just load. You're like, I'm going to be casting shield a lot, so I'm not going to be like worrying about like, oh, should I save this for something else? It's like, no, you're just surviving. It sort of gives you like that info to play it a different way, like going into it, the encounter.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And from an early age, this whole group of people are going to be able to see that
Yes.
D&D has the capability of not just being a hit point slog. And the more things that I present them with, okay, how can this be a turn left or a turn right, so that it's not just the standard thing over and
Mm-hmm.
over again. And I take all of the experience that I have, and the great GMs that I've managed to have a chance to play with, and all of the wonderful people, and the different feedback that I get from the people who are watching the channel, or the different streams that I watch. And you learn a lot just by continuing to play and trying new things. And I have learned, I think, more about gaming in general in the last 6 years, because my group has changed. My exposure rate is much greater. Like I might have played with dozens of people throughout, high school, college, what have you, but it was very, very much the same kind of people. Like I know, like I could probably pick out like 2 or 3 different archetypes from the general people that I gamed with. And people that fell outside that spectrum weren't generally thrilled or happy to be at the tables that I've been at. So like they wouldn't typically stick around. But once we started doing this, and once we started talking to more people and playing more games and more things that are not D&D, I began to pick up even more and even more and even more. And you know we've all changed our styles, and have done different things, or at least I can say that for Dave and myself. I know it was you know it was we had already started Nerdarchy by the time we met you, so it's
Sure. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
uh,
even since I've just, I think since we've known each other, we've all changed how we play even since then too. I mean, or it's moved forward
right.
and trying
So
different things for sure.
so it is a constant learning, a constant
Hmm.
evolution.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, yeah, like working in the business like this, we talk about this, off camera a lot. It's like you just think about games and gaming a lot, and you still have that same DM anxiety of like, oh, like, do I have things prepared? Is this going to be fun? But I feel like we have a lot of opportunities to just like try stuff, like you said, like I'm just going to try this encounter, or this idea for a one shot or a short campaign or something.
And totally tailored into our own stuff.
Hmm.
It's why the out of the box encounters was such fun to work on, because we've taken a lot of those alternative options and said, how can we showcase that to the people that are out there. So,
Yeah, that's a weird collection of content to like. There's some challenging questions we get asked sometimes about that, like because it's. I think there's an assumption that's just like, well, like what level do they have to be to fight the thing? It's like, so few of them are about like a combat encounter per se that it's like I feel like I'm doing a disservice by answering the question. You know what I mean? So it's like some of it's funny that they're explicit. It's like deadly, but this is not as expected. Like the only metric we have is challenge rating. So it's like I suppose if they attack the creatures in here, sure, it would
so
be deadly.
You know, just because it's got a a very pun in mind. Double underscore. Hi, Doug and Ted. I'm happy to hear your froggy
I
ideas.
didn't even notice the happy part. I saw the froggy ideas part.
If you take it at a glance while the conversation's going, it just kind of blends in.
Mhm.
But I appreciate the pun, so
Yeah.
it had to get shared. Thanks, man.
So in a broad way, one of my favorite things about froggy content and like grung characters and things like that, I guess from a player options standpoint, or even magic items, is like it's just fun to me to explore like those perspectives of like, well, what's it like to be a frog person in this world, right? Like in any game we play, it's like just a part of the draw. Um, so that part's been really fun to develop. But what was I going to say? Yeah, the as a threat, there's so many possibilities too. Like the slad that you start getting like extra planar. I think somebody mentioned that earlier. And that starts getting into like weird territory with frogs related stuff.
You can cross into a lot of different environments. You can cross over into a lot of different um if you want to use the term tiers of play.
Mm-hmm.
You can do so much and just stick with that. But the actual makeup of those type of creatures all are going to have their own environments that are going to be tailor suited to them. I can't imagine if you were to have a 2 or 3 story grung or bullywug structure, that there would be stairs or ladders.
Right,
You
right.
would just jump to the next level. Things might be like pyramided. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you would just jump to and then jump
Like
further back.
terraces and stuff.
Yeah. So like that would make it difficult for non-jumping races
Mm-hmm.
to visit. And oh well, how do I deal with that? And they might not think about, because they're typically removed from other cultures, that like that wouldn't be part of their planning. They wouldn't say, well, there's going to be people that are going to come by, we need to be ready. Maybe you might say, all right, well, there's one ladder, I guess we could go get it. But it's not kept out, it might not be in the best repair. It could be really amusing to have to go through this, the pesky waiting game of, okay, well, you got to get to the third floor, so everybody's got to climb up the ladder, then you got to
Mm-hmm.
haul the ladder up, move it to the next place, climb up, haul the ladder, like, so it could be really ridiculous. So
Yeah,
and,
that
and
would be
that's just
funny.
from that level. The slot, I mean, they start out at a challenge 5, if I recall correctly,
Mm.
with the lowest, and they go up pretty darn high. And once you start having more than one of them things, with all of the ridiculous sicknesses and diseases that they
The
can cause,
seeds that they plant in you.
it can get pretty ugly pretty darn quick. um so that is definitely an avenue that you gotta be a little cautious going down. You've got the frog hemoth that, as I'm already stated.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up the ice toad, which crosses over into a whole nother you know environment in and of itself. The fact that they get their own language, like
Yeah, that's
that
so
just
weird.
it's yeah. So
I kind of like our werefrogs, which I realized looking over them again. I was like, oh, they actually don't have like a bite that turns you into a werefrog. It's a curse that is
right.
like, put on people in the context. But I was like, that's kind of funny though, because I was like, they really don't have like teeth, you know. But they have a bunch of like alternate
All right,
actions.
so we got a question from double underscore. Would you use a death god or grim reaper that appears like a frog that visits you when you croak?
I mean, would I? Absolutely, sure. I mean, depending on the game that I was running, yeah, you know.
Oh man, double underscore, you're killing
Hey,
me
one of
tonight.
my favorite comics is the New Gods, and their death god is a guy that flies through the cosmos on skis. So I'm game for weird stuff. Why not?
I mean, Crazy Hermit DM, you're absolutely correct. Could you really do a far out adventure because some river toads give off a psychedelic effect to people that could give them temporary madness effect? I mean, there's plenty of random roll charts, in the lore in the books, as well as can be found online. So they could be in the river that they're going through a new migration and they're crossing through, but whatever oils or whatnot that would typically affect people are in the water that's a drinking source for a nearby tribe. So now all these weird things are happening and no one knows why. All we're doing is drinking water and the water looks fine, but when you go upstream and you find out that there's all these weird frogs that have never been seen before. Maybe they've got this rainbow pattern on them that they're nothing more than just bizarre tree frogs that are being driven from their home. And they're I don't think frogs typically migrate, but why not? But maybe they're just being driven off by something,
a larger predator. I'll tell you what, I'll do that one better. Play a game where the characters are the frogs who give off those weird effects to people, which was one of my most fun games that I've ever participated in. I ran it. Was they all played Grung, that I sort of created just stat blocks for them for a one shot, but I used all the different poison effects for the different colored Grungs, and they had to travel through a dangerous, like, King Kong sort of jungle with like giant apes and all that sort of hazards, quicksand and tar pits and all that, to a Yuan Ti temple to get their Poliwag eggs back. And it was so much fun. I mean, at one point, like, they got a giant ape and a giant crocodile to sort of like tussle with each other, and then they were just like trying to jump and stick on the things to make their poisons take effect. So the ape had to like jump up and down in mud on its turn, or like it had to, just there's some weird things that some of those places have now, but that was a lot of fun. And then that temple, I just found this, like, you went just jungle temple map that was sort of tiered like that, and they were pretty big tiers, but I didn't anticipate their ingenuity of just doing all sorts of crazy things to increase their jumping ability, and they just went whoop right up to the, like, from ground level to the to the top in the first round. I was like, okay,
well,
that was just a really fun one shot.
With that kind of option, you could definitely look at the the rules in the DMG about climbing on a larger creature. Rather than doing the whole grapple thing, it's like I just want to be on them. How's that gonna work? So
yeah, that was a great find we came across researching something the other day for a video. I don't remember what, but yeah, I mean, it totally has that like Shadow of the Colossus vibe, or just, I mean, players want to do that all the time, especially against giants or dragons or anything.
all right, now the chat is just getting ridiculous. A party of 4 ninja grungs to save the day, led by a were-rat named Silver, and the big bad villain is Tin Cutter. So I think we're going in a bizarre direction there, dude.
Pete's 11 amphibians who practice martial arts in the sewers.
So you could totally be shadow monks if you really want to go down that direction. Or maybe either Kensai for those who want to go in the little bit off direction with weapon
artificer for one of them. Right.
But Jason's like, how about a plague of psychedelic frogs raining from the sky? Yeah, definitely have a lot of things.
Actually, the comment just popped up from Crit Academy, and I totally agree. I like bizarre. I don't, I'll throw anything in a game if it just, feels fun, and just to see what the characters do with it. I mean, that's the beauty of DMing. Not that you can like kill them at any time or whatever. It's like you can just throw anything. A portal could open anytime, anywhere, to to anything. It's like, well, just to see what they'll do, what the players do with it, and where the story goes is the fun part of it. So yeah, whether it's a village of frog people that they have to just traversing, like you said. I mean, that's just an odd situation to explore what they do.
When you look at when you look at the options of D&D, versus, movies, books, TV shows, basically all other forms of things that are out there. It's a scenario of like you're literally only limited by your imagination.
Yeah.
You've got the ability to, I don't like, I don't want to say like it's your job to entertain the players because it's a group game. But
Mhm.
you've got the ability to put forth a story and a world and see how everyone interacts and
Yeah.
changes with it.
I think it's the total opposite. I think it's the player's job to entertain me. It's like I'm gonna give you these amazing scenarios. Like, do something cool, man. Right? I'm taking it back for the DMs out there. You
uh,
do the work, player.
well, I mean,
I'm kidding. Of course, I'm being.
and that is, to an extent, that is where agency, really can come
Mhm.
in. And I'm not going to give any kind of spoilers, if you happen to watch the Chaos Crew games, but I ran, session 11, and since that game is not being run with prepared material anymore, it's just kind of more free form. I told the players, I'm like, hey, look, some situations are going to come up in this next session. Uh, come up with, something, and we'll see how things transpires. And the players got to, each share a memory based off of, some dice rolling that I did to really, showcase, what those characters, are and were and what have
Mhm.
you. And it was just a fun thing to give them time to share, and then as a DM to be like, all right, I'm just going to put my feet up and let you guys handle this.
Mhm.
uh, but you know for me that was the all right. Every time somebody said something, I was like, all right, how am I going to link this to what's going on? And in some cases, like, it was just like, they're spoon feeding me the perfect line. I'm like, all right, I'm going to use this. And it just transitioned perfectly into, what else is going on. Other times it took a little bit of work of like, all right, we just need to look past this and we see, what have you. But when you've got, fantastic players, as I'm fortunate enough to do, I gave them less than 6 hours to be like, hey, can you come up with something? I won't force it if you don't, if you don't want. I can just kind of come up with or bypass. Um, and some people were willing to do backstory. Some people were willing to share something from, the actual game. But when you've got the capacity to, you know, to learn, to build, to share, and do all of this together, it winds up making a better game, and everyone is more involved and more entertained.
Mhm. I guess I suppose that's probably like where the sort of just general DM anxiety comes in. Maybe is like that feeling of like, well, what if like I just can't think of anything cool to respond to the play? Like in the sort of in the same way as you think like you can't outwit the players because it's like, well, it's five people thinking against my one. It's also like five, like that's sort of the real challenge of DMing, right? Is like you can prepare all you want, it's gonna go differently, right? So the scary thing is more like, what if I just can't think of anything cool like in the moment, like
Well,
that's
I
probably
mean,
more of it of what the not feeling prepared for, but you
though
just can't.
those things are there, and regardless of whether you're running a streamed game or whether you're just playing at your home table, you're not always going to have the perfect solution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care whether you're a first time DM or a professional DM who makes loads of money, playing this game. Um, there are times that a player is going to make a decision that you were not ready for, and that's okay. Like, it's a game. We're all going to have fun. Critic Academies, says it right. Take a 5 minute break. If you
Mm-hmm.
if you're not streaming, if you're not entertaining an audience as well as your players, you can be like, guys, this is going in a direction I wasn't thinking. I need a bio break or I need a brain break. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna
Yeah, it's like you don't
revise.
want to crack that shell and just be like, I just don't know what to say.
But you know,
But I suppose you could.
for me, I'm not trying to, toot my own horn or whatever have you. I haven't had, an issue come up where I've been streaming and I'm not ready for something. Um, I'm certain it'll happen at some point in time, but I'm pretty light on my feet when it comes to this kind of stuff. I've been doing this for, decades.
Yeah, my only experience doing it online is that Spelljammer game, which I guess went okay. And I often think about it like, well, I often just prepared like an hour beforehand, and that went all right, I think.
Well, I mean, there are times that I've spent, hours in advance, preparing an encounter or preparing in a session. Some days I'm like, yeah, I don't really know. I actually told my players after the game Friday night, I'm like, all right, this is exactly what I wrote down, and it was, combine this thing with that thing and come up with this kind of puzzle. And that was my notes. I'm like, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But everybody is different. You know, if you're the type of DM who's okay with that, great. If you're not, that's okay too. You be you. You plan and have fun the way that works for you. It's always been our thing. There's if everybody's having fun at the table based on how you're doing things, you're not doing it wrong.
Right.
You know,
And when in doubt, you can just have lizard folk riding giant frogs attack.
lizard folks riding giant frogs would be great. They can totally be using nets and spears. Total.
That's one of our encounters. I don't remember that. I never remember the name of that one though. But I remember the art. Got lizard folk riding frogs jumping out of the reeds.
It's just a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Um,
I gotta say, what really gave me a resurgence of like frog mania was that crow cloak. The art for that was just like boom. I want a character wearing that.
well, I
Did
totally.
you show Gabrielle?
I don't. Yes, I think she has seen it.
No, okay.
Um, I totally stole, or got inspiration from, the frog suit from, Superman
Right,
Returns.
right.
I'm like, I want big eyes, on
Hmm.
the top of this thing.
Oh yeah, nailed it so
So
much.
when Nelson did it originally, the eyes were smaller, and I'm like, nah, I need it bigger.
Oh
Like,
really?
yeah.
Well, great art direction. By the way, there's a link down in the description or the pin comment or whatever to a post that has a place where you can get the croak cloak card and a bunch of other froggy stuff that's on the website. For
Well,
anybody
Joe, we
who's
we
interested.
absolutely can have, bullywugs riding giant lizards if you really want to go that direction. There's plenty of options to go that way.
I mean, heck, if you want, take that encounter and I mean, the giant frogs are large and the lizard folk are medium. There's no reason they couldn't have a small frog-like creature on their shoulder and then a tiny lizard on that one.
So do you have a Grippoli on the lizard folk, and then the
Sure,
Grippoli's got a lizard familiar.
sure. Let's see, that's small. Yeah, yep.
So full circle back to hilarious frogs.
Yeah, but also, I mean, that's just a great tradition of sort of like animal themed cloak magic items in D&D that I feel again it just like really adds to that D&D tradition if you ask me. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
there should be a frog cloak. They got their Acnidia and the manta cloak and all that stuff.
Don't forget about Cloak of the Bat.
Yeah,
Technically, if you want to go,
displacer.
yeah, I was gonna say, isn't
Yeah,
it Cloak of the
I know
Space?
you. Yeah, it's like, can I work displacer beast in there somehow?
It is one of my favorites. It's
Hey, it might be a fey creature or a monstrosity or whatever. In addition, it's a six-legged cat with tentacles in my book, right?
indeed. In fact, that's that is on the wish list for a statuette from Creature Creation.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
I told him, like, you get the whole, cat's head with the, brilliant green eyes. You get the tentacles hanging down, and maybe, the front set of, claws out that, would either, they could be like, oh, you can hang your coat if you hang them this way, or if you do it like this, it's just the paws.
Mhm.
So it's
So
something.
yeah, I guess I'm kind of split. Right, split. I mean, I guess you don't have to choose one or the other, but like my two favorite froggy concepts that we've discussed so far is I like just frog people as just a culture, not like some evil slaving jungle creatures or whatever.
Mhm.
Just like they're just frog people, right? That's fun. Whether you're playing as one of those players and exploring the wider world or encountering their village. But I also really dig that just like sort of like extra planar fiendish or aberration frog demon thing with like Slat or Muckwuggle or even the Froghemoth, sort of like an alien, it's an aberration or whatever. Just that weird, like that strangeness in the guise of frogdom is
Yeah.
fun to play with because it's just like, I mean, it can be creepy too if there's frogs that lurk in the swamp and their eyes are just above the thing and they croak in the night and make.
I mean, you could absolutely, take it and, take it from, just that typical D&D adventure and, go into the realm of horror.
Mm-hmm. Night of the Werefrog.
I mean, it's, kind of ridiculous, but like, there's nothing to say that you couldn't, make, like, all right, we've got the, the oils on these frogs that are causing, psychedelic and bizarre conditions. Well, what if it caused the frightened condition? Like, just touching them, now you're scared, and
Mm-hmm.
what have you. Now it's all over the place. So maybe there's residual, from wherever they were. So people are getting, afraid or getting scared all the time, and they don't know why. And until it comes out that this is the cause, it could totally be, this horrific thing. But maybe it's gone, rather than just being scared, it's a specific fright, and you're afraid of them, of things that are, I don't know what the term.
Bactration, something like that, like the genus of frog.
So now we've got, Sith Frog Lord controlling the Black Dragon. You've got Frog Thulu.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Now this is something you guys made a while back. Was like the Curse of Beatus. Does that turn you into a frog person? Do you remember back then? It's in one of the things that we sort of like dug out of the archives and revised.
I
don't know if
don't
you remember that.
I don't have recollection on that one at this
Okay.
point in time.
Yeah, that was like
That might have been a Dave or a Ryan.
Yeah, it was Ryan.
So it's that's going back quite a ways. Because
I just was. I know there was some kind of frog. It's in that Croak Hollow and stuff like that. I think it's some kind of curse which is a great thing too. I mean, that's a great adventure hook, right? That people are just like, there's like a little swamp village where it's slowly being taken over by people turning into frog creatures. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I should go revisit that one and pull it up to my my kids' game.
Oh yeah. So they're not only are they frog adventures, but their adventures are sort of in a froggy world where there's a lot of frog themed stuff going on.
Is that a question, or were you saying?
No, I mean, like, is that?
No, my daughter's the only grung in the party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my.
I had this vision of like everything was just frog. It was just like a frog world.
No, I try to wrap a lot around it. I've got a half elf bard. I've got a dwarven wizard. I forget what school he is. My son is a draconic sorcerer, dragonborn, because he's all about the dragons.
Mm-hmm.
My nephew, Dave's son, has come in and out of the game a couple of times. So he's played two different characters, and then my daughter is a grung ranger, and then we have a gnome ranger. That's a big group. Yeah, it's sizable. But it's fun, and with kids sometimes they need older people to help direct. But role playing wise, they're they're golden. My nephew, not Dave's son, but my other nephew who's in the game, and my son's friend playing. They had, their first scene at the table was just like some of the best role playing I've ever seen. So, teenagers and
Mouths of
teenagers
kids.
Can startle you
Mm-hmm.
or surprise you, not startle you. I wasn't like shocked. It was just I'm like, I don't need to be here. I just I'll let them at it.
Yeah, those are rare experiences for me, but they are nice when they happen. You're like, I haven't had to talk in like 15 minutes or
Well, I mean that, again, that goes back to the style of learning from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly feel that in the earlier days, despite playing with several different groups and playing at college and scouts and what have you, it the inter-party conversations were not things that our group typically did, like unless it was like we need to plan our next steps. There wasn't the just let's have an interpersonal dialogue here. Like we didn't do that. It was more about the combat and the exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But I'm happy to have gone in the direction that I've gone. I can still recall the day where I it was after Nerdarchy, because the DM who we met invited us to a game over in Philly, and we were playing in a comic book store. We had 4 hours blocked for the game, and then we had to leave because that table was being used for the next event. And we role played for like 3 hours and 45 minutes of just in between the party and the DM, and just like he's like, oh crap, and like he realized like we didn't have combat. How can you level without combat? So he like quick rolls out the map, puts out the thing. We had a round and a half of combat, killed the thing. I'm like, all right, see you next week, or see you next month, whatever. And I was like, holy crap, we can just role play for a session. We don't need to do this combat thing. And it was something that it was definitely a turning point for me as a DM. And I'm
I don't feel it's fun. It's a weird thing, like combat, because like it is fun, it's exciting, and a lot of games, D&D included, like you have a lot of combat abilities and it's fun to use them, right, and fight things. But it's also I guess I would say I don't feel like I have to squeeze it in. Like, if we played and it didn't come up, then that's cool. I wouldn't like prevent advancement though. It's like, well, you still like move the story ahead.
Right. Well, he was doing a structured game, whereas like, all right, we have X number of sessions and we are going from this level to that level for the end of so like that was the style. And he felt, well, combat is a part of the game, therefore I want combat in every session.
Totally get that.
For me, like my takeaway wasn't I have to squeeze combat in. It's I don't need to have combat. And so for me, that was like, a major turning point in my style of DMing. And while I know that I have players that I typically game with that they would be completely comfortable with just, combat throughout, like I'm turning people around and saying, okay, well, I can do just role playing, and we can go a whole session where we just chat.
I'd say as long as you have opportunities to to maybe like do your character's cool shit, then it's a good session, I feel like, right? Like that's sort of my like benchmark for like a fun session of any role playing games. Like, did everybody at least have one time where they're just like, I got to do my character's cool shit and it went off and it was fun, and whether it was combat or if you used like a spell in a cool way to like circumvent something or whatever, you just you got your moment to like shine, basically. Maybe maybe had like everybody got to roll a 20 or something. Sometimes it's nice too if everybody throughout the night.
I've had,
but yeah, if you get your big moment, that's cool.
I've had sessions where I haven't touched a die and I've enjoyed it. So like,
Yeah,
uh,
but it is fun to roll dice too.
oh, completely. But I mean, you know what? I don't need to be, I don't need to be playing D&D to roll dice. Not that I have any within. I got dice.
Yeah, somebody. I know we're not tight on time, but we're nearing the end. This comment maybe reminded me of something I thought earlier from Cameron.
Sure.
So a frog person would be fun to role play. Why aren't you eating those flies you eat whenever you eat every fly you see? Those are sewer flies. I do not eat sewer flies. I have standards. Like I noticed something over the last, I don't know, year or two. It's like I often, when it comes up, like I don't think about it beforehand, but when it comes up, a lot of my characters are like vegetarians, only because like it's often after we've played a little bit and it's like we've met like frog people or like cow people or whatever, and it's like it just seems weird, like at some point we're like, would be, like I don't know, like especially or like characters that can talk to animals and stuff, like plain as day. I don't know, it gets into like weird territory for me. I myself am not a vegetarian.
That is
like it's just my reaction is that they don't eat meat.
That is one of those things that like it's dangerous territory to begin walking down, because you never really know how how other people are going to take it.
Yeah.
I,
Then at the same time, you like brutally slay monsters and often like butcher them on the spot for their pieces parts. This is like, okay.
So I mean, I've played everything from the vegetarian, or the, hey, I'm playing a construct, therefore I don't need to eat. I've played the the character who is into all of the the sensations. I want to try everything. The real fun thing is when you're playing with somebody for you're playing with somebody, a group for the first time, and that kind of thing comes up. Dawn, in the Dawnbringers game a while back, we just finished season 4, so this was in season 3. We fought a dragon turtle, and my dude's a dwarf. I don't think it's far outside the realm for dwarves to like turtle soup. So I'm like, all right, I wonder what that tastes like. And like the one player was like, dude, like that's a dragon turtle. I'm like, yeah. In game, my character probably is not knowledgeable enough to know dragon turtles are like super sentient creatures. They don't eat sentient creatures. He just saw it as a massive turtle.
I think a lot of players see it that way. They think it's like the dragon part's just an adjective, or it's like, oh, that's what kind of turtle it is. It's like, no, it's a dragon turtle.
But along the same lines, like you hear every so often that like there are people who eat dragon. So like, I don't know. So like, I played it off like the dude, the character's got a 10 intelligence and a 13 wisdom. You can make your judgments as you will. I don't think he's got the wherewithal to really know or care. He's whatever. But it's it's fun to think about that when you're looking at a world where all of that stuff is possible. Where is the line?
Yeah.
And yes, Jason, we did have a long conversation about the froggen, the frog dragon. When this is over, you can jump back to the beginning and check that fun bit out.
Oh yeah, I'm totally plumbing this one for ideas for stuff later. I'm writing them down here on the side.
As previously stated, the froggen, the frog dragon, will totally get a stat block, and since it's dragon, we'll have the age variations at some point in time. Just don't know where that's going to be.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I like exploring this frog stuff. Kind of just had a thought and I just totally lost it.
So like if you're willing to explore, there's plenty of frog stuff out there. With Nerdarchy, with all of the the stuff that's put out by official wizards, and crossing over into other iterations. I gotta get, Toma Beast 2 now to get
Mhm.
the the Frog Lord.
Yeah, I guess it's just a matter of like just going all in for it too. I mean, whether you think it's like silly or weird for your setting, it's like why not? I mean, these worlds are there's remote places. Just see what like maybe the next time you even have a swamp adventure, and it would just there was like your little town where the adventure starts. What if it's a town of frog people instead? Like I do that all the time when I'm prepping for games, and I think we all kind of do when we're making our products. It's like, well, what if they're not like humans? It's sort of like it's often the default assumption. It's like it's a human village. Like
Yeah, I
what
mean,
if it's a frog people village?
to me, like, it's human, elf, dwarf are like your
Yeah,
staples,
right.
which is one of the reasons why I loved, those bastards,
Hmm.
because Megan did such an amazing job of saying, nah, fold that nonsense. We're gonna have these exotic locations,
Hmm.
and I despite the fact that I'm loving Dave's game, I'm excited to run my game, and going through all the steps. I do want to get back to those characters and see where they take us next.
Hmm.
Um, I gotta wait patiently, and I gotta get through everything else that's there. But um, I I'm
Well,
just,
that's great. That means we have excitement for the games on the channel for a long time and going forward.
yeah. Um, so again, going back to that learning experience of like, that's something to take away, is to be able to say, all right, how easy is it to break the norm and say, know what, no, you need to go out into the wilds, or no, humans don't necessarily have to be the dominant race. I played a game with my friends in college, and there's one dude who he thought a different way than everybody else, and he was wild. He was unpredictable. You never knew what this guy was going to do, but he was a fantastic role player, a fantastic storyteller. I've lost contact. I've been out of college for way too long, almost 20 years now. Uh, but like this dude's like, all right, well, I'm gonna take Dark Sun, and I'm gonna take my own take on it. So as opposed to it being you know desert, it was the game was called Iron Hulk, a very, very barren, very desolate world. And the magic of the world was like, if you weren't sealed off from uh the night air, when it hit midnight, it was going to hit absolute zero, and you were going to be dead. There's no real science behind any of that kind of
Sure.
stuff, but it played into the, all right, you have to have preparation.
Hmm.
You can't just, oh well, we'll just wing it and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
You need to be going.
Yeah, watch
But
out for players when you set up those like impassable situations. Like, here's the premise. So like, okay, how can we break that? And then it's like we're just gonna
uh,
stay outside and see what happens tonight. It's like we all die.
but
Like, well, that's bullshit. It's like I told you you would all die.
but but humans were like a dying species in this world. So playing a human is like, you were a rarity, you were an
Mm.
oddity. um but he still took the wizardry as bad. It was highly frowned upon by
Oh
by the
yeah, for Dark
populace.
Sun.
Yeah, so like he had his own storyline reasons for it. I'm like, all right, so humans are rare and hated, and everybody hates wizards. Great, I'm gonna play a human wizard. So like that became a, hey, my character's along for the ride because I know things, and that's why people want me around. It was just a whole great adventure of me playing an evil bastard that's plotting, manipulating, and scheming throughout the entire campaign. um, so that was Kalarkian Demspawn, which was a lot of fun. Which that wasn't even his real name. He stole that because he stole someone's identity because that kid was going to be
Oh, that's a lot of fun having characters with aliases and things at the, like whether you're like the Charlatan background or you just came up with that on your own or whatever.
This was third edition, so before we had the legit
Yeah.
backgrounds. But
yeah, that's fun though, having like different identities.
What it was like, we were, in a rare settlement of humans, and this kid who came from a higher nobility, if you will, a higher ranking in society, and he had said that that he had some talent and was going to get trained, and totally as a kid my character murdered his and took his place.
Oh geez.
Somehow I got it all to play off, and lo and behold, I had more capabilities than this kid, and I just totally sit myself in there. It was a crazy, bizarre backstory that the DM allowed, and so I stole the kid's identity. And
that's pretty cool.
Interesting. Like I said, it fit with the whole evil theme.
Sure. Oh, everybody was evil?
No, just me. There were a lot of goody two shoes in that party that I just manipulated,
duped.
Indeed. But to tie this in, there were a couple of characters in that game that were frog people. So
bravo, nicely done.
So it was definitely a lot of fun. We are slightly past the 9 o'clock hour, so thank all of you for coming and hanging out with us for a mostly froggy kind of chat.
It happens. Tomorrow at noon we have a very special guest on the live chat.
Indeed. Go ahead. You get to announce it.
Sure. It's Chris Perkins from Wizards of the Coast. So he'll be here at noon Eastern, hang out with Nerd Darkest Dave for an hour.
And then we'll be back tomorrow night at the usual time for the moon rises to see what our illustrious heroes will be up to. And I guess until then, or until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy. Is it done?
It's not. I can't find the button. It's not loading. It doesn't want me to leave you all. You are awesome.
Well, at least we didn't say any like hot mic stuff.
Do we know who else is coming up throughout the next couple of days? Do we have anything else?
I don't know. Look it up. Let's see. Filling the air. I didn't look beyond Chris Perkins. I was interested in that. Let's see. You can watch me open files.
Yay! Chrome is finally loading, but it's now getting a spinning stream. All right, so I apologize for the extra weird minute of Ted not being able to find the button. So for real, until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.